It's Sunday. I'm cleaning out the refrigerator and the pantry. So I decided to do one last video for St. Patrick's Day. I'm going to make Colcannon, which is a potato and cabbage dish, but I'm going to put my own twist on it. And since it's just my husband and I'm just making a half batch. So I've got 3 large potatoes peeled and cubed, and I'm going to bring those to a boil. And then when they come up to a boil, I'll take the lid off and throw some salt in there. And then we'll continue on. I am going to do my own take on the Colcannon, but I will explain the tradition behind it as we go along. Normally, it's just the potatoes, cabbage, cream and butter and salt. Nowadays, some people put green onions in it or make it with kale instead of cabbage. The green onions, I definitely don't want to do that because that's actually leaning more towards a dish called champ, which is potatoes and green onions. But I am going to put a little bit of onion in. Wild onions, wild garlic are native to Ireland, so I'm going to go with that. Normally the cabbage would be boiled and then you drain it to get rid of all the excess water. But I make a lot of cabbage at our house, and I just saute it in butter and then put the lid on and let it steam. And since there's butter going into this dish anyhow, I figure why not just do it that way. So first I'm going to add, I got about 1/3 cup of chopped onion that I had left in the refrigerator. And I've got 1 large clove of garlic. So I'm going to throw those in, just get them started, and then we'll add the cabbage. The butter is melted. The onions and garlic have just gotten soft, so I'm going to add the cabbage now. This is a little less than 1/2 of a small head of cabbage. It's what I had in the refrigerator. It's actually what inspired this dish. I made coleslaw the other night. So I'm just going to toss these, get them started, and then I'm going to put the lid on and steam it. You want to cook the cabbage till it's slightly underdone. You definitely don't want mushy cabbage because this is going to continue to cook a bit with the potatoes, so don't overcook your cabbage. I'm going to salt and pepper the cabbage. You want to salt and pepper each ingredient or layer of a dish, generally speaking, in cooking, and not just salt the pot full of sauce, for example. And definitely don't wait to salt until the end, because then you're just getting the salt taste on top of your food instead of the salt flavor cooked into your food. You give that a little toss. You can see it's already starting to wilt. As long as I keep the lid on, the moisture from the butter and the natural moisture in the cabbage will continue to steam this. The potatoes are coming up to a boil, so I'm going to add salt to those as well. Again, you want that salt flavor to cook into the potatoes. I never add the salt at the beginning, especially if you're using an aluminum pot. There's a funny reaction that happens if you put salt water into a cold aluminum pot. Cover that back up and let them boil. Time to check the cabbage. It's very wilted. I want to make sure it's cooked enough, but I actually still want it to have some texture. So I'm going to give it a taste, and that's really the only way to tell if it's the way I want it, because different cabbages have different amounts of water in them. It's just the way I want it. Still got a little bit of texture, and it's delicious. That butter and garlic and onion flavor is already infused into the cabbage, so I'm going to turn that off. Time to check the potatoes. Yep, they're fork tender, so I'm going to go ahead and drain those. I've got a couple of sausages left from last night, so I'm going to go ahead and heat those up and brown them. And I took one of the rolls that I used for the sausages, split it, and I got some garlic chive butter on there. I'm going to toast that in the oven to make us some garlic bread. I've drained the potatoes. I've got them on medium heat. I want to make sure that I cook off any excess water before I continue on with this. All my excess water is cooked off. At this point, you would traditionally add milk or cream. I actually have a 1/4 cup of half and half and a 1/4 cup of buttermilk. I like the tang that the buttermilk brings, and I also had just a little bit of buttermilk left in the fridge and just a little bit of half and half. And I don't find these quite as decadent if I just use regular milk. So I want to do something a little special. And then I'm going to add 3 tablespoons of butter. And we're going to get this all combined. I'm going to turn it down a bit and just let the butter melt in there. While the butter is continuing to melt, I'm going to start mashing these. And then I will salt and pepper them as well before I add the cabbage. So I will salt and pepper these potatoes and taste them before I bring it all together. If you find the potatoes are not quite fluffy enough, they're a little dry, you can add a little bit more of the half and half or buttermilk. I do have cream in the refrigerator, which is often used in Colcannon, but it's heavy whipping cream that I have in my refrigerator, and that was just a little too dense for what I wanted. So I'm going with the half and half. And then I'm going to give them some salt and pepper. I'm pretty generous with this because the cabbage really does well with a good bit of pepper. All right, those are coming together nicely. Now the potatoes are nice and fluffy. Time to add our cabbage. And though I did turn it off the heat, I kept it with the lid on in order that the cabbage would stay warm. I think we're going to switch. All of that together. Get my masher out of there. And combine it well. Just because it's only my husband and I doesn't mean we can't have a delicious dinner that's well presented. And they say the mark of a true Colcannon, after you put it into your dish, you have to make a little well in the middle and throw in some butter. So I've used 6 tablespoons of butter so far. I'm going to put the last 2 tablespoons in. That's from 1 stick of butter total, and let that melt, and it's time to eat.